走进纽交所，直击华尔街。截至6月2日当周，美国债务上限达成协议的消息，以及超出市场预期的就业数据，推动了三大主要股指集体收涨。市场密切关注即将于6月13号举行的美联储议息会议。本周，包括美联储理事杰斐逊在内的多名美联储官员发表了讲话，暗示6月份将维持利率不变，但并不排除未来可能会继续加息。此番鸽派的言论使周四三大股指全线上扬。周五，5月份非农就业数据出炉，新增就业人数达到了33.5万，这个数值远超预期中值19.5万。但另一方面，薪资增长放缓和失业率均有所上升。从整体来看，本周美股三大股指均录得涨幅，其中道琼斯工业平均指数一周累计上涨669.42点，收于33762.76点，涨幅为2.02%。纳斯达克综合指数上涨265.08点，收于13240.77点，涨幅为2.04%。标准普尔500种股票指数上涨76.92点，收于4282.37点，涨幅为1.83%。热门中概股普遍大幅度上涨，纳斯达克中国金融指数一周累计上涨4.07%。近期中概股的走势强势，背后有哪些驱动因素？马斯克3年以来首次访问中国，并明确表示中美利益交融密不可分，这意味着什么？6月份美联储会议将继续加息还是暂停观望？6月2日，我们邀请到 KraneShares 的首席投资官 Brendan Ahern 来解读近期中概股的强势反弹，以及接下来需要我们重点关注的问题。Brendan 你好。
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Elon Musk visited China a few days ago, and it's his first visit in 3 years after COVID. As we all know, China is one of Tesla's most important markets for sales and production, and Musk had described the economies of the US and China as conjoined twins. So what message does this convey?
Well, business people globally, particularly business people in both the United States and China, are getting on airplanes and doing business and having meals with one another. And certainly the US economy and the Chinese economy are highly intertwined, that we're codependent upon one another. And US consumers benefit from Chinese manufacturing, just as many Chinese consumers benefit from great US companies doing business in China. So I think while there can be differences politically, that ultimately the US and China will figure out how to get along politically. But I think it's very important that many corporations in both the US and China are getting along just fine with one another. And it's not just Elon Musk. You had JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon in China. There's talk about LVMH's CEO, the richest man and one of the richest people in the world, will be visiting China this month, as well as NVIDIA's Jensen Huang. So a lot of corporate titans are visiting China because it's a great place to do business.
This past week ended on June 2nd. China concept stock sector has been performing very well. What is the driving force behind the rise of Chinese concept stocks? Looking forward, which China concept stock sector should investors pay specific attention to?
Yeah, I mean, at KraneShares, we're big believers in the e-commerce story, the domestic consumption story for this year. This week, you had JD.com, Jingdong, their 618 sales event. The initial sales, far exceeded expectations. So a lot of the rumors about the death of the Chinese consumer appear to be highly exaggerated. So I think the strong 618 sales event is a strong catalyst. And I think it shows that China's economy is coming back. And obviously, for KraneShares, KWEB is our big flagship China ETF. And it's going to end the week up almost 7%. And that's despite Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday were a little bit of an off. So we think there's better news coming in the weeks and months ahead for China's consumer story.
The House and Senate passed debt ceiling deal last week, and on Saturday, US President Biden signed an agreement raising the debt ceiling. How will this affect the US stock market in the next week?
It's very interesting that US stocks were we're not overly concerned with the potential for a debt ceiling crisis. And so certainly the resolution is a good thing for the US stock market, though it seemed to almost discount the probability of a potential default. What's interesting is that the US dollar was very, very strong, indicating that it was a concern for other market participants, not necessarily the stock market, but when you see reserve currencies rally, such as the US dollar, it's an indication that for other market participants, it certainly was a concern. So you're likely to see potentially the dollar come off. And certainly we've seen that where the renminbi has rallied on the resolution of a debt crisis versus the US dollar.
So Wall Street has been debating whether the Fed will continue to raise interest rate or take a pause. Which scenario do you think is most likely to happen? How will US dollar index perform in the coming weeks and months?
Yeah, another factor in around the dollar, besides the debt ceiling, is the Fed policy, and indications are that you potentially have a June and a July hike, but then the Fed will pause, and so you're seeing that, and part of this weakness in the dollar is driven from the potential that we'll see a Fed pause, which I think would, we believe is a constructive strategy. Simply the Fed has raised interest rates in such a dramatic fashion. We've seen a banking crisis here in the United States, that to pause and see to the extent the economy is slowing would be a prudent course for many investors. That could potentially be a catalyst for non-US stocks, for Chinese equities, which have faced the headwind of a strong dollar. So potentially we think non-US stocks, including China, are beneficiaries of a Fed pause policy.